You're exhausted. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that lives in your bones. And somehow, despite everything you're carrying right now, you're still thinking about whether the person next to you is okay. You're still rearranging your schedule, softening your tone, choosing your words carefully so no one feels uncomfortable. You noticed someone seemed off this morning, and you've been quietly turning it over in your mind ever since. You'll probably check in on them before you check in on yourself. From the outside, this looks like generosity, and in many ways it is. But there's something underneath it that most people never say out loud, that sometimes the giving isn't really a choice. Sometimes it's the only way you know how to be safe in a room, and that changes everything. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive, too soft, or too much. What you're doing is something your mind learned to do a long time ago, back when it was trying to protect you from something real. The brain doesn't invent coping strategies for no reason. It builds them precisely, quietly, in response to what it needed to survive. Forgetting yourself to focus on others isn't weakness. It's one of the most sophisticated things the nervous system knows how to do. The question isn't why you do it. The question is when it started, and what it was keeping you safe from. For some people, the pattern began in a home where love was conditional. Not in a dramatic way, not always. Sometimes it was subtle. Praise that came when you were helpful. Tension that arrived when you had needs of your own. A parent who was easier to be around when you were good. A family system where someone else's emotions were always louder, always more urgent, always the ones that filled the room. In those environments, children learn something that no one ever says directly. Your worth is in your usefulness. Being needed means being loved. Being difficult means being abandoned. So the child learns to read the room before they read themselves. They learn to sense what people need before those people even know it. And they get very, very good at it. This is where the behavior roots itself, not in weakness, but in intelligence. A brilliant, early adaptation to an unpredictable emotional landscape. There's a concept in psychology called the anxious attachment style, the way some of us relate to people when we've learned that connection is fragile, that it requires maintenance, that we need to earn our place in it. For people with this pattern, the nervous system doesn't fully relax in relationships. It stays slightly alert, slightly vigilant, scanning for signs that something is wrong, that someone is unhappy, that they've done something to disturb the peace. Helping other people is one of the most effective ways to quiet that alarm. If you're useful, you're needed. If you're needed, you're safe. The help itself becomes a kind of emotional regulation, a way of managing anxiety that looks, from the outside, entirely selfless. But here's the part nobody tells you. The same brain that learned to help others so fluently often never learned how to ask for anything in return. Not because it doesn't want to, but because asking felt dangerous once. It felt like risk, like exposure, like the moment someone might reveal that your needs were too much, that you were too much, that you'd misread how safe this relationship actually was. So the asking went quiet, and the giving stayed loud. This pattern doesn't stay the same as you grow. In your 20s, it might look like being the friend who holds everyone else together, the one people call at midnight, the one who never cancels, never complains, never seems to need anything. There's a strange pride in that, a sense of identity built around being reliable, being strong, being the one who shows up. Then life shifts, relationships deepen, responsibilities compound, and somewhere in your 30s or 40s, the exhaustion starts to surface in a different way, not as tiredness, but as resentment. A quiet, confusing bitterness toward the very people you've poured yourself into, because you've been giving and it has started to feel, somewhere beneath the surface, like no one sees it, like no one asked if you were okay. And here's the quiet truth underneath that resentment. You were waiting to be asked, because asking yourself felt like too much to do alone. The behavior hasn't disappeared. It's just showing you something new. It's evolving, the way most things that live close to the self do. Think of the giving as a blanket. It started as something that kept you warm, kept you covered, kept you hidden from the cold of uncertainty. As long as you were helping, you knew what your role was, you knew where you stood. You had a function, a place, a reason to be in the room. That kind of certainty is deeply regulating. When the world felt chaotic, when emotions were unpredictable, when approval was inconsistent, when love felt like something that could be withdrawn, having a role meant having ground to stand on. The giving was the ground. And even now, in a safer life, the body still reaches for that blanket. Not because it needs to be protected the way it once did, but because comfort has muscle memory. The nervous system returns to what it knows how to do. That's not a failure, that's a nervous system doing exactly what nervous systems do. There's something else worth sitting with. People who forget themselves to help others are often extraordinarily perceptive. They've spent years reading subtext, noticing what's unspoken, moving through emotional space with a kind of quiet precision that most people can't access. They feel things deeply, they remember the small details. They know what someone needs before that person does. This is not separate from the pattern, it grew out of it. The vigilance became a gift. The hyper-awareness became attunement. The thing that was once a survival mechanism has also made them, genuinely, beautifully, someone the world needs more of. The cost and the gift are made of the same material. That's one of the most human things there is. So if you recognized yourself in any of this, if you felt that quiet, specific click of being seen, then know this: you don't need to be fixed. You need to be understood. By others, yes, but first and most quietly, by yourself. The part of you that keeps showing up for everyone else, it came from somewhere real. It learned something real. And it has carried you faithfully across a life that has asked a lot of you. You are not someone who forgot themselves. You are someone who learned, very early, that the world was easier to move through if you made yourself small and your care very large. And you did it with a kind of grace that most people will never fully see. But you can see it now, and maybe that's enough.